Grateful for the chance to speak in today's debate and follow on from the statement the other day. I would point colleagues, before she leaves the chamber, to the speech from our honourable member from Newbury earlier on to hear about the legacy as she leaves the chamber. It's really bad timing on my part. To colleagues on both sides of the House about the legacy of this government around education, because it is absolutely something to be proud of, and I won't use my time to repeat it, but when I post this on my Facebook page later, I will link to it so that all of my constituents can see it too, because standards have gone through the roof in 13 years of Conservative government, something that my right honourable friend, the Schools Minister, and others in government should absolutely be proud of and trumpet at every possible opportunity. And I can point to recent examples in my own constituency, Queen Elizabeth Academy, Oak Tree Academy, West Notts College, that have gone through difficult times in terms of quality, but are rated good, some of them for the first time ever, because of incredible amounts of local work and also that drive for higher standards and better opportunities for kids in my constituency from this government. So don't let anybody tell you that the Conservatives don't care about kids or education or schools, because it is demonstrably nonsense. Labour are asking for information in this debate today that they would never release themselves, and that is absolutely clear. If the shoe were on the other foot, they would never allow for this to happen. They would be sat here voting against it because they know that there has to be an ability to have a confidential conversation behind the scenes when you set budgets, because otherwise no ideas would ever come forward and no plans would ever be made. And they know that perfectly well. Government is, of course, releasing information about schools. The list has been published today. In England, can't be done in Wales because Labour-run Wales don't have the information because they haven't done the work to mitigate this challenge. And the Secretary of State had very little choice, actually, last week in making this decision. You don't get to choose when expert advice comes forward and changes the balance of risk. She had to take a risk-averse, a safety-first approach, and that was absolutely the right thing to do. And actually, the immediate response to this has been very good. I felt her frustration yesterday when I saw it, because this is not work that has just happened in the last week. This is work that's been going on for years. The department took a decision, identified the schools, supported those schools, committed the funds to tackle this, and that's happened fairly quickly. And the outcome, again, as my honourable friend from Newbury said earlier, is that fewer schools were affected than were originally thought last week. That is something of a success. And the history of this goes back several years. This idea that's been raised from members opposite to say, oh, this only emerged last week or in 2022, again, is nonsense. I'm the leader of a county council, a responsible body for maintained schools in my constituency and around it. We've been doing this survey work with the DfE since 2018-2019. That's been ongoing for a long time. There have been local and national condition improvement funds working on the quality of those schools in that time. As a result, when this announcement was made last week, we had very good data and information to be able to tackle it very quickly. And as a result, the sum total across all of Nottinghamshire, there are no schools in my constituency, across all of Nottinghamshire is one primary school being delayed by a couple of days in its return. And that's not an accident. That's because a lot of work and funding and support has gone in over a long period of time to make sure that happened. What happened in 2022 is the DfE stepped in directly in places where that had not happened. And that also was a good and responsible thing to do. So I want to pay tribute, actually, to the work of colleagues in the department and in my own council who have managed this well over a number of years. We have a £9 million school condition improvement fund of our own, a local fund in Nottinghamshire. There are 4 schools in my constituency being rebuilt. All of these are good news stories for schools, not just the quality of education I've described, but for school buildings in my constituency and around it. That level of rebuilding, 500 new schools over a decade, is consistent with anything that's ever been done over recent decades. I think the numbers under the programme that Labour are lauding ended up being something like 25 or 30 a year, fewer than that. They never reached the targets that they said they were going to reach. Shock, horror. And this was an issue, of course, back then, 97 to 2010, what they never mentioned at any point ever. They tell us now that they would have used, if they were in government, they would have used their psychic powers to figure this out before the experts did, and they will have tackled it well in advance. Well, of course, we know that that is not true or possible. But the biggest concern I want to raise is one around reassurance, Madam Deputy Speaker, because I've heard 3 times now from the benches opposite, schools are literally falling down around our children. Name one, because they're not. And that is not the case. And each time I hear that, I am reminded that I will be getting emails from my constituents saying I am worried about my kids' safety in my school, when there are no schools affected in my constituency, where they do not need to worry, and where those kids have all gone back, every single one, safely to school this week. That fear-mongering, that rhetoric is irresponsible. And I will have parents worried about the condition of their kids' school unnecessarily when I know, for all the reasons I've described, that we have managed this well over a number of years and that is not an issue in my constituency. And I would urge them to think long and hard before they put that unnecessary stress on parents who are already finding this difficult.